Welcome to the Q&A session with former NBA All-Star, Rookie of the Year, and current Player Development Assistant of the Brooklyn Nets, Amar'e Stoudemire. What? Woo! My name is Zach Greenberg, and I'm here with my Vice President, Jared Benjamin, with Amar'e, and we're both huge fans of you, Amar'e. We've been longtime Knicks fans, longtime basketball fans, and we're so excited to have you here. So, Amar'e, to start us off, can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you first got involved with basketball?
Yeah, well, I was born in Florida. I was raised in New York. I started playing basketball at a young age. My first sport was baseball. My second sport was football, because in Florida there was no organized basketball programs. But I was always in love with basketball. And so, when the organized basketball program came to Florida, I was able to play for them, and then the rest is history.
Wow. So you were drafted straight out of high school with the 9th pick by the Phoenix Suns in 2002. Were you nervous at all coming into the NBA so young? And how did you manage to not only survive, but thrive and end up winning Rookie of the Year that year?
Yeah, you know what? I wasn't nervous at all. I was so ready for the NBA. I was preparing myself throughout my high school career to get ready for the NBA. So I really had no fear. And then so once I got drafted, I was completely accepting all challenges against all the great players. And then so I was able to become the first player ever to get Rookie of the Year from high school.
Very cool. A lot of great players now. I feel like you kind of set the tone here. A couple of great players that come out of high school. Before you, there was Kobe, but after you, there's been some real great players that come out of high school. So the next question is, in 2004, you got to play alongside all the rest of the members on Team USA in the Olympics in Athens. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience with the Olympics and getting a chance to play on a real super team? We talk about super teams in the NBA, but the team that you were part of in 2004 was a little bit different, I think.
Yeah, it was incredible, man. I played with Allen Iverson. I played with a lot of great players, Tim Duncan, and a lot of guys on that team. Most of the guys are all stars. LeBron James, Carmelo, D Wade, and so forth. And so, yeah, I was one of the young guys. I was only maybe 21 at the time, and I was just enjoying the entire Olympic experience of being able to travel the world. And then that was a special Olympic for me because the Olympics originated in Athens, Greece. And that year, the actual Olympic Games were also in Athens. And so that was definitely a special way to kind of kick off my Olympic career.
Pretty amazing. It was. Okay, so the next question is from Jonathan Berger. He says, in 2010, you signed with the Knicks, and you transformed a franchise that hadn't really made playoffs in a really long time, a decade. You turned them into a playoff contender right away the year that you signed. And you come from Phoenix, and you played alongside Steve Nash, who's a Hall of Famer and an all-time great point guard. And you ended up becoming a hero in the city and became an all-star. You finished 9th in MVP voting. I remember you had that consecutive 30-point game streak. So what was it like going to the Knicks and leading the Knicks? And why'd you decide to come to a franchise like the Knicks, which was very different than the culture that you experienced in Phoenix, I would assume?
Yeah, I wasn't afraid to accept the challenge. Anytime, for players who want to reach a level of greatness, you want to always accept challenges. You want to put pressure on yourself to exude your best ability. And so I was able to somewhat, choose the Knicks. The Knicks also was very generous with wanting me with the team, so I went where I was wanted. But I was definitely prepared and ready to accept the challenge to get the team back into the playoff shape and to bring some more, excitement to the town.
Did you think you were gonna take the Knicks who hadn't made the playoffs in a decade to the playoffs that first season?
Yeah, that was the goal, bro. I wasn't going there to lose, man. So for sure, I was trying to definitely take us to the playoffs. And not only that, I want to bring other players into New York to try to get us to a championship eventually. And so we had a solid success for a while, but it was a good run that first year.
So this was a particular special night for Jared and I both. On December 15th, 2010, against the Boston Celtics, you hit a buzzer beater 3 that would have won the Knicks the game, but ultimately, the refs waved it off because the ball was on your fingertips. And like personally, that was like the first full basketball game I ever watched. Like I remember just getting text messages on my phone like Knicks win, Knicks win. I'm like, what is happening? How are the Knicks winning? And then I decided to like check it out, and that was the first game I watched. And thankfully, that was like one of the best games I've ever seen. And can you share us a little bit about that game against the Celtics and what it meant to you?
Yeah, it was great because for me, I was playing against three of the top players, maybe four of the top players of all time, with Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and then Ray John Rondo, who was definitely an all-star at the time as well. And it was all trying to battle against me, and I was like not backing down. I think I had like 35 points that game or something, 16 rebounds. And so it was like a moment where I wanted to win that game. And so the last second shot, Coach drew up for me to shoot. And it was only like 0.6 seconds left, I think it was. So I had to catch and release pretty quick. But at the end result, the replay showed that the clock started a little bit early.
Really?
Which then now, in the result, the ball was in my hands before the buzzer went off.
Wow. Regardless of the result, you created two Knicks fans on that night, so you can know well that me and Zach, I mean, we are where we are, and the way we follow the NBA is because of that game. So even if they waved the shot off, you could be happy knowing that. So the next question is, who would you say your favorite teammate was? Who'd you love playing with the most that anybody ever played with?
My favorite teammate to play with was Steve. Because he made the game so much easier. He was a true point guard with no ego. When you play with other superstars, they have egos, and it's just like they just forget about winning, and it becomes an issue. But Steve was one of the only guys I played with that didn't have any ego when it comes to that, and it made it so much fun to play with.
One of the best Canadian basketball players to ever play.
Yeah, probably number one. So. Similar subject. Who not best teammate, but who is the best basketball player that you played against in a game?
LeBron James. Wow. LeBron James was the best basketball player I played against in the game, only because he was just able to dominate the game in a way that I haven't never seen before. And then Kobe Bryant also was a player I would say like right up there with that, because Kobe was a player that we just could not game plan for. So those two guys are for sure up there, and I can't exclude Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq was a player that was definitely a dominant player, but when I played against him, he was a little bit out of shape, but he was still hard to guard.
Which team do you think was tougher, the Miami Heat with LeBron or the Boston Celtics with Paul Pierce and Garnett?
The Miami Heat with LeBron was tougher.
Well, you played against both those teams in playoff series, no? Both those guys, yeah. So, all right, so this one comes from Eitan Shancy, and it's a question that me and Zach are both curious about. Simple question. LeBron or MJ, who's the GOAT?
Michael's the GOAT. MJ's the GOAT.
Wow.
I mean, LeBron's going to for sure break a lot of the records because he's playing 19, 20 years. Michael only played 14 years and has all these records. And Michael is the only guy in modern history to receive every single major award that the NBA has to offer.
Right. I mean, I think LeBron came second in Defensive Player of the Year once or twice. But
yeah, he definitely came second.
Mike Prime is something different that the basketball's never seen.
Yeah, I mean, he was just very, very fundamental sound. He was able to do anything on the basketball court. There was no weaknesses at all with Michael Jordan. You really couldn't game plan at all with him. And if the NBA was definitely shooting more threes back then, he would for sure became a three-point shooter. But because back then the NBA wasn't like in that three-point era, only Reggie and Larry Bird, the only two guys shooting threes. I think Larry might have shot like maybe 100 threes one season, which is now guys shooting 15 threes a game, which shoots 400 threes a year. Like it's like crazy now compared to what it was back then. But Michael was for sure had no weaknesses.
After stints with the Mavericks and Heat, you decided to go to Israel to play for Hapoel Jerusalem. We're in the jerseys. And you helped lead the team to their first championship ever. Can you tell us about that and how it compares playing in the Israel League versus the NBA?
The NBA is obviously the best league in the world, right? I mean, you have the best talent. Everything's like Class A. Travel private planes, you have 5-star hotels, you eat with a world-star chef. It's a total different world. But I wasn't going to Israel just to play. I was going there to learn as well and experience the culture. So I was able to humble myself and be able to not even concern with the lifestyle the NBA had to offer. And so I was able to somewhat adjust to Israel. And it was an amazing, amazing time I had in Israel.
I mean,
do you go into were you expecting to win the championships your first season there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wanted to. That was the goal. Like, anytime you play a season, you want to go into it trying to, leave out some hardware. But it was a challenge. It was for sure a challenge with players. With me being this NBA star, going to play with players who played a few years in the NBA but didn't have a long career there, and for me not trying to take their shine or to show that I'm it's my way or the highway type of attitude. So I had to work on humbling myself and then allow my teammates to understand that it's about us, it's not about me. And then once I was able to accomplish that, then I was able to somewhat apply my leadership to the team and then apply my dominance to the game. So it definitely took some work, but we were able to accomplish it.
I think that since you've left the Israeli Basketball League, it's actually, I think now it's at a little bit of a different point. I mean, we see that Denny Avdia is being drafted in the first round last year, and so maybe hopefully the NBA, the Israeli Basketball League, can kind of bridge the gap a little bit at least between it and the NBA and make maybe, I don't know, a lot. I mean, it's becoming a lot more competitive, it looks like.
Yeah, it's becoming competitive. There's a long way to go. I think what I'm doing now with my youth program, once this COVID-19 pandemic is behind us, I'm going to definitely bring some talent from America and go to Israel and play against Division II teams, Division III teams, and start a tournament and play tournaments so that way the players in Israel can compete against top players in the States, which raise the competition. And in the long term, the Israeli players will become better players.
Okay, so the next question is, you recently took up a coaching job with the Nets. So can you talk about the transition from playing to coaching and some of the nuances you've learned along the way? And can you talk a little bit about your brand new formed Big Three that you've got in Brooklyn now?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I was going to go back overseas and play in Israel. I played my last year with Maccabi, won a championship there. I got the MVP in the finals. So I was definitely looking forward to going back to Israel to continue learning and also play and enjoy Israel. But when buddy of mine, Steve Nash, got the head coaching job with the Nets, I figured this might be a nice opportunity to get back involved with the NBA. So I gave him a call and said, hey, what's the chance of me, joining the staff? He's like, yeah, we'd love to have you. And so that's kind of how it started.
Wow.
So that
D'Antoni.
Yeah, so then later on we brought in D'Antoni, and Steve finished building his staff in that way. But as far as the Big Three, man, we started out with Kevin and Kai, and then we ended up bringing James on board, and these guys are they have great chemistry. They're playing well together. It's actually fun for me to be a part of my first year, as a coach, to see this type of chemistry and play and be around players that I played against, but to see them on one team competing for a championship.
How's it been coaching during the COVID pandemic, not having any fans in the stadium? Do you think that affects the players at all?
Yeah, it does affect the players. I mean, it's a little bit weird not seeing the fans there, having the energy and interacting with the fans. That's always fun. Yeah, we saw recently LeBron and then the fans sitting courtside, interacting. That is entertainment. Even though that situation led to the lady getting kicked out of the game, but that interaction with fans is what we feed off of. It's entertainment. The fans love it. They get a chance to shout at the players that they have, their rivals against. The players can react to them and hey, what are you talking about? That's entertainment that the players and also the fans are missing out on.
Yeah, during I mean, he didn't even say anything negative. He was just like, I'm so happy to talk to somebody in the stands and to speak to the fans. And it was so interesting to me that he had nothing negative to say. He was just like, I'm happy to see fans there and to interact with them again.
Right, exactly, 100%.
So this year, our Yeshiva University men's basketball program, for the first time, made the Sweet 16 in the NCAA D3 tournament before COVID shut it down, before we had a chance to compete for the finals. Would you ever consider, well, first of all, did you hear anything about that? And would you ever consider coaching YU men's basketball or teaching a class at YU?
Yeah, I didn't really hear about that much, but I do think that's a big mazel, man, for the guys to be able to make it to that far within that tournament. But yeah, for sure, there's always a future within enhancing any program. So I would not rule that out at all.
Okay, so we're going. So since we've mentioned Yeshiva University, we're going on a little bit of a transition here into Judaism and all that that entails and your journey to Judaism. So there's a question from Sarah. She says, as we were an Orthodox and Shabbos observant campus, can you go into your story as your journey towards Judaism and what got you interested? And how did you find out that you were Jewish? And when did you start picking up on Judaism? Was it in New York? Was it in Phoenix? Was it somewhere else? How did that all get started?
Yeah, it started out, my mom was just saying that we should keep the laws of Moses and that we should connect back with the Torah. And I was like, okay, cool, sounds good to me. Why not? I was about 12 years old or so. She had this epiphany, I guess. I don't know. And so I was growing up thinking about that. And when I got maybe 16 or so, I started learning more about it. So I was learning on my own because in my community, there was no Jewish community in my neighborhood. And so I had to learn basically on my own and figure it out for myself. And so as I started learning, I had friends that was learning also with me. And then so when I got to the NBA, that continued, and so I was learning there, just kind of reading the Torah and just kind of lining things up and trying to make sense of everything. Obviously having no rabbi, someone to learn with who were, a scholar in that field, it took a lot longer for me to understand everything. And so when I got to New York, there was a guy who reached out to me on social media and said, hey, Amar'e, I've been following your story. I love what you're learning. Everything you're learning is totally correct. I would love to learn with you. And so I was actually training with the Hakeem Olajuwon in Houston at the time. And this rabbi and his cabooses flew out to Houston, and we sat down and learned for about an hour, 2 hours. And so when I got to New York, we started learning together. I started going to lectures with different rabbis, and I went through a conversion process then. This is actually after I went to Israel. But when I actually went to Israel, I wanted to take even more of a serious approach. So I went to the yeshiva there, Or Sameach and Meir Sharim. And then I went to B'nai Brak to learn with rabbis in B'nai Brak. And I ended up converting again, which everyone saw, I think, about a year ago.
Wow. That's amazing. So on a similar note from Gabby Benjamin, what aspect of Judaism in particular drew you in and that you feel like you resonate the most with?
Just a relationship with Hashem, being able to connect with Hashem in a way that allows you to kind of continue to stay engulfed in that ruach, right, in that spirit, that energy. And so being able to really, really stay in that space, whether it was just saying brachot, whether it was just davening 3 times a day, all these things just kind of keeps me in the loop and connected with Hashem in a way where my neshama continue to grow.
Amazing. So, what would you say your biggest challenges were when in the process where you converted a year ago that you were talking about? What do you think is the biggest hurdles you had to overcome?
I was more so just like, why is everyone wearing black and white? Is these dreadlocks on the side of everyone's head? I didn't know what was happening. I was very confused for a while, but I was very humble about my approach, and so I sat down and talked with the rabbis and asked questions about this. And so he explained to me very well on why things were. And so I realized, this is intriguing to me. I like this even more now. This is incredible. So it somewhat pushed me in a way that I wanted. And I started learning more and more and more. And I started falling more in love with it each time I had a lesson or two. And so that's how it all started for me.
So I know you mentioned your rabbi in Houston, but were there any other role models that you had along the way towards religion?
I mean, I watched. Obviously, growing up in America, I saw I heard a lot of the speeches from MLK. Bob Marley was a guy who I kind of loved his music, as far as world peace and just being able to having songs about Holy Mount Zion, and all these things that I was hearing growing up played an intricate role in my development.
So similar note. So what's your favorite part about Israel? And there's a lot to love, but what would you say? What's your favorite part about being there?
I mean, I'm a single man, and my favorite part is that everyone's beautiful there.
Tel Aviv, baby.
Wow.
You ever go to the Shuk?
Yo, the Shuk is great, bro. The Shuk is like a nice part of town in Jerusalem. Thursday night, man, it's happening tonight in Jerusalem. Shuk, so yeah, the Shuk is definitely a vibe. Tel Aviv is for sure a vibe, bro. I mean, it's just so many amazing people there that are just enjoying life with no worries and no negativity, which is beautiful to be a part of.
From Ben Sadiq, sorry, do you want to drink? So, as you began your journey to Judaism in the NBA, did you ever feel any backlash? And how accepting was everyone in the basketball community towards your path, your journey to Judaism, towards Judaism?
I mean, it was fine with it. They kind of saw what I was learning along the way anyway, so it wasn't really surprised that I moved to Israel and wanted to go through a conversion process and get things going that way. So they're pretty acceptable about it. I'm going to plug my computer in right quick. I got a low battery.
Yeah, no worries.
Can I ask you some questions?
All right, we're good.
All right. So the next question is from Max Cohen. He wants to know how you arrived at the name Yehoshaphat. How'd you end up choosing that for your Hebrew name?
There was a guy, man, I was asking, I was like, yo, I need a Hebrew name, a rabbi. His name is Ben Yehuda. He was like, all right, I'll think about it. So he came back and was like, yeah, I got one for you. I'm like, okay, Rebbe. He said, he's like, your name's Yehoshaphat. Like, what? Out of all the names, you give me a Yehoshaphat name? Like, who is Yehoshaphat? Go learn about him. So I went to go learn about him, and I was like, this is a very cool name. I like this a lot. And when I got to Israel, everyone was like, Yehoshaphat? That's such an interesting name. I don't think I ever heard anyone with the name Yehoshaphat. I was like, all right, Rebbe. My Rebbe was, he looked out for me. I like this. This is a cool name now. So yeah, that's how I got the name Yehoshaphat.
Wow. I thought it was like, it kind of rhymed with stat. So like you went for it.
Yehoshaphat is stat.
Close, but that wasn't the reason.
Yeah. Do you go by Amar'e more or Yehoshaphat now?
I go by Yehoshaphat, but a lot of my friends still call me Amar'e. I can't. Amar'e is also kind of a biblical name, but it's not as strong as Yehoshaphat. But I do still go by either Amar'e or Yehoshaphat.
Do you have a nickname in Yehoshaphat, like Shua or Fat? I don't know.
No, I mean, a lot of the guys, my trainers in Israel call me Yoshi. I'm like, wait, I don't know if I like this. I played Mario Brothers growing up. I don't like the Yoshi name.
So most recently, you got the Nets to agree to allow you to not coach on Shabbos. So how did that conversation go down with the front office, and how did the team react to your decision doing so?
You know what I think helped? I think because when I first moved to Brooklyn, we always had the same hotel before the season started. And so I would go to the coffee shop and grab my latte with oat milk, and they saw me with my keeper on and my tzitzit. So I was like, wait, I wonder how they feel about this. And so I didn't hear any mumbling or anything like that. So I'm like, all right, well, it seems pretty cool. So later on, when the season started, I went to the gym like, hey, because of my religion, is it okay what do you guys think about me not working on Shabbat? And they were like, hey, we're fine with that. No problem at all. So I was like, all right, great. Got that out of the way.
You got a very strong Jewish community where you're coaching.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Okay, so the next question is from Ezra Bain. She says, do you think the NBA is a little bit softer today than it was when you would play, when you were a player versus when you were a coach? And how, if you would have adapted your game if you were playing in the current NBA right now, 2020, 21?
Yeah, for sure. The league is a little bit softer. They're more so trying to protect the players, I think. So it could be a good thing. Because when I was playing, I played against some pretty strong guys who were like serious around the basket. Shaq, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and Tony McDyess. Rasheed Wallace, Chris Webber. These guys were serious guys around the basket. Today's game is a little bit different. You don't have these kind of monsters down there as much as we did back when I played. So if I played now, I would for sure be able, at the age of 38 right now, I would be able to get busy.
I'm teared up.
Yeah, I think with your three, I mean, you were a pretty good 3-point shooter in the game back then. So like, I feel like your game would transition pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, bro. Like, I mean, I was shooting threes back then. I kind of started this wave of like versatile fives.
Yeah.
Because I was a natural power forward, but I was very agile and quick. And so that's why Steve and I connected so well. Because when I set the screen, I roll out pretty quick, and it's like these guys couldn't keep up. And then also like the up tempo style, the guys couldn't keep up. So I for sure think that I'll be able to take advantage of that now, even in today's game.
Yeah, 100%. So this is a question from YU alumni Ephraim Wachschlag, who's also a best-selling author, NBA journalist, and co-founder of Hazan Sports Management. So he asked, how do you view yourself being in the rare position as both an African-American Jew, where you're part of two communities who have a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences. So can you speak about, like, I know, like you've spoken about the violence against the Jews in New York, and I would like to thank you for that. Can you please speak to us about what you've done and what you plan on doing, if anything, to form a tighter bond between the Black and Jewish communities?
Yeah, my thing is it's all about Hashem first and foremost. You know, what I'm doing is to build a connection with Hashem and be able to continue to build myself up to where I'm able to be acceptable in the eyes of Hashem, right? So that's the ultimate goal for me. And so I think I am in a peculiar position where I'm African American. I'm also Jewish, so it's like, you know, I don't think the world have seen this much before. But it doesn't affect me at all. I can care less what people think. It's more so just being able to really just connect with Hashem and then let that imagery portray out positivity. And so that's the idea.
I mean, a very unique position, but I mean, you do a great job with where Hashem put you, you know. So the next question is from Ezra Bain. She wants to know if you could have been teammates with any one player that you didn't end up playing with, who would it have been? And this could be while you were playing, or it could have been all time. Who would you want to be with?
I probably would have wanted to play with Michael Jordan.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, only because Mike is like, that energy itself will help you grow into whatever player you want to be, just being around that kind of guy, you know. But I think that would have been great for me to really play with Mike and be able to learn from him. And I'm sure my game would have elevated for sure if that would have happened.
100%. So speaking of like Mike, what was it like playing with Mike Bibby, some say the GOAT of basketball?
Mike Bibby?
Zach is a big Mike Bibby fan.
Oh, man. I wonder who said Mike's one of the GOATs of basketball.
Our fantasy football.
With Zach.
Hey, Mike Bibby right now is like a 6'3" muscle, man. This guy's all jacked up now, man.
I don't know how he got ripped. That was wild.
Yeah, no, Mike was a good player, bro. I played, you know, obviously I played in Phoenix, and Mike was also a great player in Arizona. That's where he's from. But yeah, I played against him a lot when he was in Sacramento with those teams. He was definitely a great player. I respect Mike so much because of what he did for the NBA and what he's doing now, coaching, and also continuing to push the game forward. So I definitely respect Mike for that.
Yeah, I know you guys were both had to do with the big. So time you see it.
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm being a little echoey, Zach. If you want to ask the next question, that's all right. I'll work my thing out here.
So this is from Vered Kaplan. Would you one day want to make Aliyah and live in Israel permanently, or you think what is that on your radar at all?
Yeah, I'm an American Israeli citizen already, so I mean, I'm gonna for sure eventually make the final push to make Aliyah to Israel. Once I figure out my career and once I get completely settled, depending on, you know, Bezrat Hashem, if I ever get married, then depending on what she wants to do. But yeah, I for sure would love to live in Israel, 100%.
So I remember speculating like a few years ago also. So back, I think it would have been like 2016 when like the Olympics happened in the summer. and Israel basketball was kind of on the rise. And I remember when you became an Israeli citizen, I was thinking like, oh, like you could play on Team Israel with like Omri Caspi and like Gail Meckel. And did that ever cross your mind, like competing with Team Israel for like the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean that's the goal, bro. I'm not sure how possible that can be, but I only have a few years left of like great health, man. You know, so if they want to continue, if they want to push that envelope and get that going, it's best to have those conversations now, so I can keep myself in shape and get prepared for that.
Oh wow! So you would play now if the opportunity was like right, like if it lined up well.
1,000%.
Wow.
Very cool. Okay, so in the same kind of vein, so there's a question also from Barrett Kaplan. It's actually a really good question. She wants to know what's some of your favorite mitzvot to do, your favorite holidays, and what's a Torah idea that you always try to live by?
What's my favorite mitzvot?
Yeah.
I mean, I try to live by the mitzvot of acts of kindness. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's always very important for me, because when people see me as, you know, as the career that I've had, and a lot of people look up to what I've accomplished, and they see a guy who's like showing acts of kindness in this manner, and a humble person, then it rubs off to them in a positive way. And my favorite day of the week is Shabbat, obviously, because it's like I can rest and kick back, relax. I get this holy energy from like davening at the shul, Shabbat morning, and then I have like, you know, the Shabbat lunch, and I have Motzi Shabbos, and it's like Havdalah. Everything goes along with like that whole aura of spending that time for Shabbat, which is quintessential for growth, spiritual growth.
Do you daven at the same shul on Shabbos as every week in Brooklyn?
No, so I daven on Shabbat. I daven at a different shul, and during the week I daven at a different shul.
Uh-huh. Gotcha.
Someone actually just asked me, can we ask you where you daven?
Negative.
Okay.
I can't tell you one story though. I was actually when the James Harden trade happened. It was early morning. I was going to daven for Nate's, and one of the rabbis would say, "Hey," right before I walked into the shul, he said, "Hey, did you hear about the news?" I was like, "What news, Rabbi?" He's like, "You guys got James Harden." What? I had no idea, man, because I turn my phone off when I go diving, and so I found out from a rabbi who was actually there at the shul right before Shachrit.
Shuls where all the everything gets spread around. You find everything out.
Love it, man. It's all good.
Do you like cholent and kugel?
Cholent, sure. If it's made properly with a little extra spice, then we're good to go. I'm not a gefilte fish guy.
And neither am I. It's not.
My wife likes it, but I don't go for it.
I love the concept. The concept makes sense. It keeps you from like the boree of like separating on Shabbos, which is great. I understand that. But the taste of the gefilte fish is not my deal.
Okay, so this is a totally different route here. The next question is, what was it like being a television actor? I know you were in Law & Order SVU, you were on Sesame Street, which are two very different shows.
Trainwreck?
Just want to what was it like being on TV and acting?
Yeah, man, I was in Trainwreck. I was a dancer New Year's Eve. I did Beyond the Lights. I did a lot of different films. Every film was different. Every film was different. It would be difficult now as an Orthodox guy to act in those roles that I did before. I had a kissing scene before that was very uncomfortable. The lady was not attractive. So that was a little bit uncomfortable. But when you're acting, you have to put yourself in that role. You have to become that character. But it is a lot of fun.
Wow. So this is like a more recent thing where last summer, maybe 2 summers ago now, you had the opportunity to play in the Big 3 League run by Ice Cube, which had like a lot of veteran players. Can you talk a little bit about that and what got you involved? How did you get involved in it? And what was it like? Did you like the concept of the whole league?
Yeah, a buddy of mine called me. He was like, "Hey, you're gonna start this 3-on-3 league. I want you to be a part of the ownership." It's like 3-on-3. Like, I'll pass. But then after I went to Israel, and then I was in Israel playing. There's a lot of hype behind it. The first season was great with like Dr. J and Charles Oakland. These guys were involved. I'm like, man, maybe I should have got involved in this. And so when I traveled back from my season in Israel, I wanted to continue to stay in shape throughout the summer. So I was like, this might be a good way for me to just keep in shape and also build camaraderie with the guys I played against. And so that's how I got involved. I started playing every summer. It kept me in shape.
Okay, the next question is from Derek Orenstein, who's obviously he's actually organizing this meeting. He's the guy that spoke at the beginning. He wants to know, what inspired you to release a line of kosher wines, and which one's your favorite?
I used to travel the world, man, doing wine tasting and food pairing. So I was doing that for years, just traveling and doing a lot of pairing with my chef at the time. And so I developed a nice palate for wines. And so a buddy of mine here in New York was like, hey, Amar'e, man, I know that you love wines. You should probably have your own wine one day. I was like, hey, it sounds cool, man. We'll see. And eventually I ended up meeting a guy in Israel. We started, a collection of wines. Mavushu kosher wine out of Tulip. So I did a 3-bottle collection there. And then I now have I'm going to release on the 11th of February, the 4th bottle with the Herzog family out of California.
Awesome. So this question's from Yisrael Tannenbaum. I think it's pretty interesting. Do any of your teammates ever want to learn about Jewish customs with you, or anything about?
I wish, bro. I would love to sit down with them, but I'm not like a guy who goes out and recruits.
Yeah.
So if they want to learn, I'm always willing to sit down with them and have a learning session and fill them in on just the quintessential ideas of what Judaism is about. So I would probably start with teaching them midot, the character traits. And then I'll also probably start talking to them about Porkei Avot, just so they can understand the ethics of the father, so they can get an understanding on how to care themselves. But yeah, if they want to learn, I'm here to teach. But I don't go and force my learning on anyone unless they ask me questions.
People ever ask you questions like, hey, why do you do this? Why do you do that? What's on, why do you wear tzitzit? Why do you wear a kippah? Stuff like that?
I haven't got those questions yet, but I do get my teammates be like, hey, what's up, Amar'e? Shalom, Maki. Oh, shalom, Maki. So those little hints of conversation lets me know that they're watching and they're interested, but we haven't really got to a learning session yet.
So players on airplane flights don't what do people talk about when you're on the airplane flying? Do people mostly just have music in, or are there ever deep conversations going on?
Yeah, when I played with the Knicks it was, but I don't travel with the team here with Brooklyn. So, but when I was at the Knicks, I was for sure learning. I had my Siddur with me, and so one of my teammates actually was reading my Siddur several times. I'm like, hey, you're reading my books, huh? So later on, this guy actually ended up converting to Judaism, and now he plays basketball. He played basketball a little bit overseas in Israel.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, there's a New York Times article I think about that. How he was I would leave my book sometimes by accident, at a team lunch or something. He would read my book as he brings it back to me, and he found some interesting points in there that was very, hit home to him. And he was able to he wanted to now, look forward to learning more about Judaism.
Wow. Amazing.
So the next question is from Vered Kaplan. She wants to know, if now that you're in America and no longer in Israel for the time being, do you find any challenges with keeping up your beliefs with your studies? You're getting a degree and you're coaching basketball simultaneously. And if there are more challenges being in America versus being in Israel, how do you keep it balanced? How do you do everything at the same time? And how do you motivate yourself with all this going on?
Well, that's a great question. The Yetzer Hara is always going to be after you. So you have to keep yourself surrounded by like-minded people, and you have to keep yourself engulfed in learning. That's what I've learned. So my rabbis have always been on point with checking in with me. I'm always keeping up with them as far as trying to dive in, as much as I can. And also being able to just have these group study sessions with my friends to try to keep me on point. because that's hard. Doesn't give a break, bro. He doesn't slack at all. So you have to be able to try to fight those energies off the best you can.
It's amazing. So this one's like a little bit more with the NBA. Do you think that your Phoenix Suns 7 seconds or less offense would be more or less successful in today's NBA?
Oh, we would have definitely adapted to today's NBA because we started at 7 seconds or less. And with the guys that we had and the players that we had, we can for sure compete with the teams nowadays 100%. We would have shot more threes, would have been more innovative, because at the time we started 7 seconds or less, we were already innovative. We were the guys who were pushing the envelope. So for sure we would definitely compete in today's time because we have Hall of Fame players. B'Ezrat Hashem, I get inducted to the Hall of Fame, but we have 2 Hall of Fame guys on that team. But right now, Steve Nash is still on the Hall of Fame guy, but we have perennial All-Stars on the team, so we for sure could definitely keep up with today's game.
Yeah.
So similar vein about the NBA. So what player gave you your welcome to the NBA moment when you're just started out when you first entered the NBA?
Kevin Garnett. It was a night when I had 38 and 15 as a rookie, but he also had 38 and 16 as a vet. So it was an incredible battle between him and I. But the moment wasn't that I was afraid or was outdone. It's more so this battle that we're having. This is the NBA battle. This is what I love. That was the moment where I felt like I've arrived.
So, who do you think was harder to play and compete against, Tim Duncan or Dirk Nowitzki, and why?
You know what? Tim Duncan was harder to play against because the guy was just so fundamentally sound. But he'd give you 35 and 15, and you're like, wait, he has what? How did he get 35 points and 15 rebounds? But he stands around the rim and he taps it a few times at the basket, and it's 3 rebounds on the stat sheet. It's not like he's out. It's not like he's amazingly athletic where he's just grabbing rebounds over the top of you and dunking the ball back on your head. It's more so this guy just tap it a few times, 3 rebounds, just a crazy shot off the glass. Next thing you know, he has 20 and 10. Dirk Nowitzki was a player that he's scoring a lot because he's shooting threes. You're guarding one-on-one. The time's winding down. He's making these incredible shots. It's you just can't stop this guy. But both players were for sure hard to guard.
Next, that was a good question. One second.
Your echo's there.
Is it good now?
Yeah, now it sounds good.
Okay, so it's a good transition question. It says, do you think it's harder to guard Shaq one-on-one or learn a daf of Gemara?
It's harder to learn a daf of Gemara.
Wow.
You heard it here, everybody.
Shaq, you just have to do your best. Learn the daf of Gemara, you got to do more than your best, but you got to put in a lot of time and effort. That daf yomi is a hard deal, brother.
Do you do daf yomi or?
No,
I'm not there yet.
Yeah, Jared actually
looking to start soon. I've been keeping up with the most recent cycle. It's tough, but now I know I could guard Shaquille O'Neal if I could do daf.
Yeah, hey, the thing is with me, I'm 6'10", 250, brother. So if you're a little smaller than that, you're gonna have a hard time. Trust me. This guy, listen, this guy. I'll tell you a story about Shaq. I was actually in the training room, and I asked my trainer. I stood behind Shaq, and I looked over around Shaq, and I asked my trainer. I was like, "Can you see me?" And the trainer's like, "Amar'e, I cannot see you, bro." I'm like, "What? You can't see me? I'm 6'10", 250. That's how huge Shaq is. It's crazy, man.
But it's interesting. I don't know how well his game would be in today's NBA with the whole 3-point transition.
No, listen, bro. Okay, guys can shoot a 3 on Shaq, but you got to guard him on the other end. So you're gonna commit fouls by guarding Shaq. He's gonna dunk the ball and one. He's gonna cause a lot of havoc on the other end. So you basically just like win both. You know, you're playing chess, but each one making the correct move. You know, so some guys who can't score in the paint, then now they can't play because you're not getting an even balance between the defensive and offensive guys.
Yeah. You have Shaq. You pull people off the perimeter. It really opens up the entire floor.
They got to guard him, man. They got to guard him.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what got you into the wine bass treatment and if you still keep up with it? Okay, fine. That was a bad question.
No, the wine bath. It was a gift to me for my birthday, and I had no idea what it was. I didn't want to go. I was like, I'm not doing a wine bath. What is this? So I went there, and it was nice. It was like a massive hot tub of like wine and water, like 100 degrees maybe. So I got in there. I sat down, relaxed. They brought me a nice cold pitcher of ice water. They brought me a nice glass of wine that was not from the bathtub. Okay. And I was able to just relax for a good 45 minutes. It was amazing. I took a selfie, and it became viral.
Yeah, I don't know why that went viral, but yeah.
No one has ever heard of a wine bath before.
Exactly.
It was like, what is this?
I would do it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's relaxing.
So the next question is, which prayer in the Siddur specifically speaks to you the most, do you think?
I think Shmoni Esrei. Shmoni Esrei speaks to me the most because you're stepping into the presence of Hashem and you're diving in these 19, blessings into Shmoni Esrei, which is amazing, bro. I mean, you really get engulfed in the Shmoni Esrei, and you say it 3 times a day, which is an even more precise davening. But you can't underestimate the Shema, because the Shema is also part of the Torah, and that's like another level of like being able to like keep yourself focused on your daily goals.
So, what on Shabbos? What do you often do? Like, do you go to like? I mean, I guess it's COVID, so it's hard now. But like, in general, do you usually like go to people for meals? Like what's your like Shabbos routine? Yeah,
so we have Shabbat dinner Friday night, and then I'm basically in bed after that. I'm like nice and full, and I'm like out of there.
Yeah.
And then Shabbos morning, I go to the shul. We're diving. Some families have Kiddush afterwards, so I go there for Kiddush. So I have Kiddush in my place. I go on a Shabbat walk, and I take a Shabbat nap. Yep. So I go back for Mincha, and then I have Havdalah and the Moshe Shabbos, and we're good.
So which Jewish books, different types of anything that are you currently learning that you'd recommend to everybody?
Say it again.
Which different books are you learning and studying right now that you think you'd recommend to everybody?
Right now, I'm learning a lot of Mishnah. I'm learning two parts of Mishnah. I'm learning Brachos and Shabbat. And I'm also reading like Onkelos. And so I'm also trying to learn how to read from the Torah, which is very difficult because I don't have like the vowels, and I'm not a great singer.
Yeah, reading from the Torah is very tough. I mean, it's all like, there's so much work and practice that needs to go into it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know if you're familiar with the show, but do you watch the YouTube show Game of Zones, and do you think it's funny?
Game of Zones?
Yeah, Game of Zones.
Never heard of it.
You should check it out.
What is it?
It's like a Game of Thrones parody on the NBA.
Yeah, it's hysterical.
Okay.
They like take Game of Thrones plot and like they like incorporate like NBA players into it. It's like whatever. It's really funny.
Got it.
Yeah, you got it. Whatever. You got to check it out.
I'm not a big YouTube guy, man. I'm not sure what to do with that.
Yeah. You're a Disney Plus guy, I could tell.
Listen, I do watch my Lion King movie.
The real one, or the remake, or the cartoon?
No, the newest one that came out, bro, with the high definition, like real deal, man.
It's It's crazy some of the stuff that they can do. It's really crazy.
I'm waiting for them to now redo the Prince of Egypt.
Oh, that's not Disney. That's
it's not Disney?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Disney.
It's DreamWorks. They're like whatever. It's like the people. Yeah, they're similar though.
Have you ever seen the original Exodus? It's like 100 hours long with Charlton Heston. The very first in like the 50s or 60s.
Really? I haven't seen
it's like a 4+ hour movie. That's the whole story.
I don't have the time for that, bro. It's just too much TV to watch.
On the day before Pesach, they always play it on TV. It's always shown like the night before the first Seder. So it's always on TV.
So I might catch it. Pesach's around the corner.
Don't let my wife hear that.
What motivated you? I mean, like being that we're Yeshiva University, did that play a factor into you like agreeing to do this Q&A? And yeah, I mean, have you ever like interacted with any like did you even hear about Yeshiva University before this Q&A session?
Yeah, my rabbi went there. He went and took his Chazan classes there, and he asked me to look into doing it myself. And I was like, okay, Rabbi, I'll look into that. I wouldn't mind kind of going to Yeshiva U and learning. So I have heard about you guys before this chat.
So I think like to wrap it up, Jared and I kind of wanted to share like a funny story, I guess, that we had with you. Like, so a few years back in our Shana Aleph in Yeshiva Nativ Aryeh, so Nativ does an all-night learning every Shmini Atzeret, and I think it was not Shmini Atzeret.
Hoshana Rabbah.
Rabbah, yeah. And for some reason we do like an all-night learning, and I remember it was like 4 a.m, and I see like on like Facebook, like for some reason, like I was like just like taking like a quick breather, and I just like saw like, oh, like Amar'e Stoudemire is going to be at the Inbal Hotel at like 8 a.m. So like it was like 4 a.m, and we're like, you know what, let's just like stay up and walk to the Inbal Hotel and go for it. And I don't know if Jared has the picture, but like
I got it here.
I still have the picture that we took.
Amar'e, you got a very different haircut over here in this picture.
Oh man, look at that! That is a blast from the past, brother.
Yeah. And you actually like, I mean, I don't know if like you signed our jerseys.
Yeah, it's also on the back.
Nice.
Yeah. So these are signed, and you also signed my Harry Potter book.
That's awesome, brother.
Yeah.
Love it, man.
Yeah, this is a funny throwback. So this isn't the first time we met.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Mari, thanks so much for joining. Oh, actually, last like closing question. Do you have any tips for the viewers watching about like anything with like I don't know, anything with Judaism, basketball, like life? Like, do you have any advice or tips you'd like to share with the audience?
I mean, the idea is always to stay strong. You know, there's going to be times when the Yetzer is going to come after you. There's going to be times maybe you're a little bit confused. But the ideal is always just kind of keep your mind focused on Hashem. Never disconnect from Hashem, and you'll always find the correct path. So never get discouraged. Stay with it. Stay strong, and keep pushing forward.
It's amazing.
Thanks,
Mari, you're our motivation.
It's all good, brother. You're my motivation as well, my man.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it, dude.
Yeah.
No problem, guys. Anytime.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in and listening to this inspiring Q&A session. And everyone, stay safe and enjoy Snowvid 21.
Right. Later. Thanks.
All righty. Have a good night, everybody.